it's all cliched stuff, right? It would sound like cliched to people listening to this, but why are we fighting against what we know is true? Why are we fighting against what we've always done? Get men together, give them a problem to solve, and they're happy. That's half of the problem done. I do talk in these old terms because I think we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You interview a bunch of successful men who have retired and you get them to tell you about the highlights of their life. Most of them are not going to tell you about the car they bought, the house they bought, or whatever. They're going to tell you about the time they were in the trenches. They're going to tell you about the time when they were starting up. There was just a few of them. They were eating ramen noodles. They had an old garage with a door as a desk. They're the war stories. They're the battle stories that we used to have. You know, they're the sitting around the village fire, telling the younger men of when you went out and conquered and went out and had escapades and went out and explored and went on adventures and built stuff. They're the arenas. You know, I talk about why men like football and business so much. It's for those reasons, because that's where we test our heroicism. That's where we get to do it, and that's where we build stories, and that's where we then get to share those stories and teach each other. They're the modern day battlefields, you know, and I don't mean that in the way of like glorifying war. Men are warriors. Men were always warriors. Men are still, to this day, especially young men, looking for places where they can show that they're competent, where they can show that they're strong, where they can show that they can face fear and overcome difficult situations.
You work with a lot of people on an individual basis.
Yep.
And also in corporate spaces.
Yep. More and more.
Is there a difference between what you do with people on a personal level and what you do with people on a corporate level? And how do your skills in what you do with men's work translate into the corporate space?
Yeah, see, I think that there's a sort of misnomer of this idea between professional and personal. You know, there is no professional, there is no personal. Everywhere I go, there I am. And I think that's one of the mistakes we make in how we kind of balance our lives. You know, we look at it as these two very separate things, but that's just not true. I mean, we as men particularly are so closely tied in to what it is that we do, that we even our surnames used to come from them. You know, we were carpenter, we were lock, we were smith, we were defined by what we'd done. And these identities that are still as important to us today as men. So to try and separate them, it just doesn't work. We have to bring the two of them together. And the things we want from work are the same things we want at home. We want recognition. We want to feel like it's important. We want to feel like it contributes to the lives of others. We want to feel like we're making a difference. Same way we do at home. You know, the separation of professional and personal kind of starts with the Industrial Revolution, really. And it's not a natural way of doing it. So I try and look at things holistically, whether it's as a father, whether it's as a businessman. Am I the man I want to be? And am I moving closer to the man I want to be or further away from the man I want to be? And all you can try and do is get clarity of what's the man I want to be based on your needs and on your beliefs, and then put strategies and habits and rituals in place that help you get closer to that rather than further away. I mean, a classic example of that is, and I talk about this quite a lot, is this idea of like teams versus tribes. We don't want teams. We want a tribe. And we want that work just the same as we want it with social groups. We want a group of people that we can work with, that we can trust, a small group, small enough that we can contribute to, that we have a sense of we're chopping wood together. You know, and this thing of where it got to, you know, people from working from home and all that stuff, it's created a gulf where it's getting even worse and even harder to feel like we're working together at something. And that's what I think men really want, especially men. We want to be part of a community a group with a common goal, where in some ways we can lose ourselves within it. We've become very obsessed with the individual as a society. And actually, I think we're looking for more places we can lose ourselves within, um, because that's how we get relief. We get relief from losing ourselves for a moment by going into work and being part of a team that has a common goal and, working our nuts off in pursuit of that common goal is its own reward in many ways. We want to have a sense of that that we'll live and die together, that we'll break bread together, that I'm there for you and you're there for me, and that what I do benefits the greater whole and the greater whole will benefit I. I don't think that we can separate those things.
You mentioned tribes of teas. What's the biggest differences between a tribe and a team, and how does implementing a tribe in a corporate space, or what's more effective about implementing a tribe in a corporate space over a team? Because obviously, for decades and decades in the corporate space, all you've heard about is team building, team building, team building, team building. So, from your point of view, where is that line drawn? Where does a team become a tribe, and what are the advantages of that?
I think a tribe builds more into our identity. I think that we identify by the tribes we're in. We very rarely identify by the teams we're in. Teams feel very top down. Like, this is where we're going to go and this is the structure. Where a tribe feels like it's came out of the common purpose. And also the rules of a tribe are very different to a team. In a team, it's harder to hold each other to the level of accountability that a tribe can. A tribe, it's much more likely you're going to be held to your word. Um, a, a team seems to have a softer energy, and I just don't believe men thrive in that softer energy. In fact, I think men want to be held in a firmer light, one common goal. With more of a sense of kind of brotherhood in it, really, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of just not, we've been put together to do this thing. Like, we are in this together. We will live and die together. The rules are very different for a tribe.
And from a corporation's point of view, does that look different structurally in terms of business structure? Do you structure different for a tribe than a team? Are the rewards different, or are rewards given differently?
I think with a tribe, you definitely have to have an idea of, like, we eat together more. If you think of teams, they're kind of quite counterintuitive in a way, because you get a group of people together, yet it's individual. What's the word for it? It's like individual action is recognized and acknowledged, and only certain people can kind of get the promotion.
So
That builds competitiveness.
breeds unhealthy.
So you're in competition with each other, whereas a tribe kind of, and it creates different values on different things. Whereas with a tribe, the effect is kind of shared out, and the different roles within it are acknowledged more equally. I mean, you see this in football. Football is like a football team, right? And, like, everyone's about the striker, right? But footballers know that that's not the case. Footballers know that it's the whole team that makes a difference, but it's seen as these ones are more important, and that's the problem with the sort of team scenario we have in corporate situations. Um, and also with a tribe, I think there's a sense of it's us against everyone else, and I know that seems really sort of counterintuitive to put those things um, back into corporations, because we've been trying to sort of soften corporations for a long time. But I'm not sure if that's the right way to go, in fact, because if we're honest, business has replaced war as the place where we go in to one of the places where we go in to test our competence and our courage and our honor. That's become the place where we we go in and we see how fierce and ferocious and cunning we can be. And there's this idea of sort of change in that, because is that really how we want to live our lives? And I think the answer is sort of, on some levels, yes. I mean, men need to test those things and be tested in those things. And also, it's what we look for in other men. If you think about it, look at what we look for when we look at other men. We want men to be we respect men that are courageous. Right? We respect men that are strong. We respect men that are competent. Um, and we respect men that are honourable, because there's no point of having any of those other things, right? If there's no honour. Now, you can discuss that stuff for ages and say it's bullshit if you want, right? And say we've moved away from that and we don't want men. But let's look at the men who do well. Let's look at the men who are revered in our societies. There's still men who show courage one way or another, even through business. There's still men that have competence. They're good at something. They're useful. And that's because that's the way it's always been. If there was a problem now, if there was some sort of ecological disaster or something, right? The first thing that anyone would want to do is group up with a group of men to build safety, right? You'd want to come together. And who would you be looking for in your circle? You would want men that are good at things. You would want men that are strong. You would want men that are courageous, and you'd need men that you can trust. And so those values are valued more in a tribe than they are a team. Because in a team, one way or another, you're in the team, but you're all not in the fucking team, really. There's one promotion going up, there's these amount of bonuses, there's whatever. So everyone's together, but they're playing as individuals. In a tribe, there is no individuals, there is just a tribe. So it goes back to that place of creating an environment where people can lose themselves within it, because that losing of ourselves actually gives respite. It's tiring believing you're the center of the universe the whole time, and we don't want to. We want to lose ourselves in something for a while. I think that's why the rave scene caught on so much back in the day. It's just an example of that, because you could go to those. Anyone who used to go to them, you'd go to those, and for a while you wasn't I. It was we. It was just us listening to this music. We're a tribe. And if you look at the names them things were given, they knew that there was something more primal that was going on. And there's something more primal about being part of a tribe where you have a common purpose, where you're all in it together, and it flourishing becomes the most important thing. That that lack of the lack of space beyond that weirdly brings peace, I think.
And so, just to explore that a little bit more and maybe be a bit devil's advocate with it, you talk about sort of, the idea of there just being the one promotion and someone going up for one promotion. But aren't those things always going to be in the corporate world where you can only have one slot to move into, to move up? Is that competition ever going to be disbanded if those scenarios still exist? Or is it the actual mission of the business that's the biggest thing that the tribe works for? And regardless of position, are you talking about pay scales being abandoned? And
Well, I mean, that's a big jump.
Yeah.
And that's a big way, and that takes a lot of that would be a real radical difference. But I think it would be a difference. I think it would make a difference. I think it would make a benefit. But it depends on really scale. When I talk about tribes, what I'm talking about is really working with a small group of about 12 people. And it's difficult to have like same pay structures across whole companies, but at least within cores or small groups as you can, keeping it as equally distributed amongst that group as possible. I think that is a benefit. I think that is a benefit because as much as you can build a sense of it's us against the world, the better. Men thrive on that.
And you sort of make these analogies sort of going back to, sort of hunter-gatherer days, if you like, in the sense of talking about tribes or teams, hunting parties, chopping wood.
Yep.
Um,
We don't want colleagues. We want people that we can chop wood with. That's what we want. Because men enjoy working with each other. I mean, men love work. I mean, it's such a cliche, but it's true. What do men do when they retire? They go and they start building something. They start tinkering with old cars, or men like building stuff, and they like doing stuff with other men. I work with men, especially with the work I do through the Mankind Project, right? I work with men from all social stratas, all over the world. And as soon as you can bring a group of men together and go, this is what matters. That's why service is so important too. This is what matters. We're going to get this done. I've seen high court judges happy to wash up because we've stripped away the external bullshit of that's menial and this is important. It's all important because it's all in service to the common goal. And once all that stuff's out of the way, men just enjoy being with each other and doing something useful, fixing something, mending something, building something. It's all cliched stuff, right? It would sound like cliched to people listening to this, but why are we fighting against what we know is true? Why are we fighting against what we've always done, right? Get men together, give them a problem to solve, and they're happy. That's half of the problem done. And so I do talk in these old terms because I think we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, you interview a bunch of successful men who have retired, and you get them to tell you about the highlights of their life. Most of them are not going to tell you about the car they bought, the house they bought, or whatever. They're going to tell you about the time they were in the trenches. They're going to tell you about the time when they were starting up. There was just a few of them. They were eating ramen noodles. They had an old garage with a door as a desk. Because they're the war stories. They're the battle stories that we used to have. They're the sitting around the village fire, telling the younger men of when you went out and conquered, and went out and had escapades, and went out and explored, and went on adventures and built stuff. They're the arenas. You know, I talk about why men like football and business so much. It's for those reasons, because that's where we test our heroicism. That's where we get to do it, and that's where we build stories, and that's where we then get to share those stories and teach each other. They're the modern day battlefields, you know, and I don't mean that in the way of like glorifying war, but like men are warriors. Men were always warriors, and men are still to this day, especially young men, looking for places where they can show that they're competent, where they can show that they're strong, where they can show that they can face fear and overcome difficult situations. So if they want to make that the workplace, go knock yourself out. It's better than going out and slaughtering people. If you want to make that a sport, brilliant. Go out and do it. I mean, look at everything that men get involved with, right? Look at fucking breakdancing, right? It's dancing, and you turn it into a competition, right? It's like you pick anything. You pick anything. You can go, oh look, a yo-yo. Yep, you'll find the world yo-yo champion. And you know what? Normally, it's going to be blokes, right? And is it because blokes are just naturally better at stuff than that? I just don't think women generally would waste their time on, I want to be the best fucking yo-yo player that there is in the world. But a man will, because he wants to show that he's a master at something. He wants to show mastery. Because why? We respect it in each other. So we need to build systems that support how we are, right? Because you're talking about, good friend of mine coined a phrase just yesterday, so I'm not going to steal it as my own, which I loved, was a caveman mind in a modern body. Like, we can fight against that shit if we like, or we can just embrace it. And that might mean facing some uncomfortable truths, like our careers and profession may come before our personal lives. Behind closed doors, lots of men, when they're talking about their private moments, you've got to push them a little bit before their proudest moments. You have to push them a bit before they'll come to like the birth of their children and stuff. There will be, when this happened, first time I've done that, first time I've done that. It's not that we're callous. It's just that our values are different. And we can fight that if we like, or we can just embrace it. And I just think embracing these ways and finding new ways to apply them that's beneficial is better than throwing out the baby with the bathwater and people leading secretly miserable lives.